coordinator for the garden here, and I am going to talk about harvesting from our herb garden, sharing recipes, how to harvest properly, and because my background is in farming and farming specifically medicinal plants for the last few years, I can't help but also include the fact that a lot of our culinary plants in higher dosage also have a lot of medicinal qualities that people have recognized for the thousands of years they've been working with and using plants. Obviously, all of the opinions that I share are my own, not the City of Carpinteria's. I'm not a certified herbalist. This is not something I've gone to school for, but I have worked with these plants, growing them for quite a while now, and I use them for myself and my friends and family, and feel a lot of benefit from working with the plant world, as I'm sure many of you have experienced if you have a garden bed here, or plants are just really important to people. So I'm excited to talk about them today and help you all harvest. So my goal was to kind of just run through this little printout that I have, and then kind of set you loose to make some oils and vinegars from our herb garden, but also there are herbs hidden throughout the garden, so you can totally go on a little scavenger hunt if you'd like. So this herb spiral was planted, I think, 2 months ago, and the plants were tiny. So it's pretty amazing, first of all, how quickly you can bring plants into your life, especially a lot of herbs that are either annuals, which means they just grow for one growing season, basically until they're frost killed or cold killed, or perennials, that also a lot of medicinal plants grow really quickly and are very resilient in the face of things like complete inattention or lack of watering or poor soil. A lot of our culinary / medicinal herbs are from the Mediterranean that has a very similar climate to this part of California. Kind of harsher rocky soils, low water, and from my experience of growing these plants, actually watering less makes all of the oils and resins that are the culinary and medicinal part of the plant stronger. So stress can actually bring out a stress response in plants, which is what we can taste and smell and feel, is the chemicals and the oils and the resins that are released in response to things like predation or drought or all the other encounters that plants have in their life. So, in terms of why to grow culinary herbs, medicinal herbs in your garden, the benefits are huge for your garden space beyond just your own body and well-being. A lot of our culinary herbs are insectaries, which means they bring in all of the pollinating insects that we need to get things like tomatoes or cucumbers. So pollination, of course, an insect, usually an insect, sometimes a hummingbird or the wind, will go into a flower, pick up all of the pollen, incidentally to the nectar they're going for, and pollinate. So when we're calling in bugs, the good bugs, with all these extra flowers and scents, it's really beneficial for the rest of your garden. So that's the idea of companion planting, right? That you don't want just one thing in your bed, you want a variety of things that are blooming at different times to call in all the things that your plant needs to be healthy. So there's of course also the culinary benefit. A lot of the plants that we use all the time, people kind of don't think of as, oh, they're actually plants. Like oregano, when you get it in the store, it's just this kind of dried thing in a jar, but that is a beautiful plant that we have in the garden that I will show you. So a lot of these plants, like I said before, are also drought tolerant, so I think it's really great to encourage things like that to grow here, just limiting our water use as much as we can. So I have outlined a few, well, I was going to make it a few, and then it's not a few. Some easy to grow, stress on the easy to grow container herbs that have culinary and medicinal benefit. A lot of these are just what is in your pantry already. Some of them a little different, maybe some things that are new to you, so I was going to kind of just run through them. Most of these are plants that are in the spiral, so I'll also point them out when we go over there. I did want to say that when I first started to learn about the effects of plants on our bodies, it was there's just so much information, and it can be a little intimidating. I don't have a scientific background, so I didn't know a lot about anatomy or body systems or anything like that, and that felt like a limiting factor to understanding how plants work, but it's not at all, actually. A lot of these plants, you can use your senses to learn what they do to you, and the thing about using plants is that they're very safe for the most part. These are things that you just invite into your food and into your diet, and pay attention to how your body feels after you've eaten them, and you're a long way towards understanding how they work on your body. So I just want to empower everyone to use their senses and pay attention to their body. If something that you eat doesn't feel good, cut it back or don't eat it. But the thing with bringing plants into your diet is that they're just ultimately almost always beneficial for you. So that being said, there's a lot of information here, and I don't want anyone to feel intimidated or overwhelmed. These are all things that you can revisit on your own time, or start eating these plants and seeing how you feel. So a really extremely amazing medicinal plant is basil, which is a culinary herb that we probably all know and love, especially with tomatoes, like epitome of summer vegetable. Basil is really good for your digestion and your nervous system. So when I say nervous system, it's your brain. A lot of plants have a really calming effect on our brains, and especially the world we live in now, where we're all just going hyperspeed all the time. Plants can really help you slow down, and I think probably a lot of you have experienced that just by being here in the garden. So basil, I included a medicinal basil pesto, which is really just pesto. Pesto being kind of, I don't always put nuts or cheese in my pesto. When I say pesto, I just like blend up leaves and add olive oil, and sometimes if I have like sunflower seeds or pecans, whatever, I just put it in. But it's an awesome way to eat fresh plants all the time. It's so easy to do, and stores really well. I'm sure that you all know the put pesto into an ice cube tray and freeze it all, and then you have little servings of pesto. So it's a very storable thing. It'll live in a jar in your fridge for weeks if it's made fresh. So yeah, basil is amazing. It's just really good for your digestion, so it's really good to include it with all of your meals. Something that I added in here is dandelion, which is a weed. And lots of industrious gardeners here weed it out of the beds all the time. And I'm like, oh no, I wanted that to stay. Dandelion is a really good bitter. So bitters are plants that taste bitter to us, and they're super important for our digestion. They're what kind of trigger your body to produce bile, which is a fluid that helps your body to process food. And bitter is often a taste that we don't have in our diets anymore. Humans used to eat tons of bitter greens because a lot of the first spring vegetation is a little bit bitter, again, to stop animals and insects from eating the leaves, but it's really good for us. So it's kind of an acquired taste now, but it's really good for you. And even things like arugula and mizuna and mesclun and endive and escarole, things like this that have that bitter taste, it's really good to eat raw to help your body digest properly and assimilate all the nutrients in your food. So dandelion leaves are an amazing early spring green for your salads. The root, which you can dig up and roast and grind up, is a coffee substitute. So has anyone ever had like a roasted dried dandelion beverage? There's one called Dandy Blend that's in a lot of stores. That's dandelion and chicory. I love coffee, so I'm like, doesn't taste like coffee, not a coffee substitute, but people totally use it as one because it's also bitter and warm and brown and doesn't have caffeine. Tulsi is one of my favorite plants that I would love for everyone to grow. It's another kind of basil, which means it's very easy to grow. We have it in our herb garden. I planted it kind of late, so it's still a baby, but I'll show it to you all. And I have a lot of seed at home that I forgot to bring, but if it's something that you would like to invite into your garden, I would love to share seed with you. Holy basil is what it is called in India, which is where it's from. Ayurvedic medicine, which is very ancient medicine of India. It's one of their premier herbs, and it is a plant that helps your body and your mind respond to stress in a way that isn't degrading to your body. So we now know, science now knows, that stress physically degrades your cell walls. It has a lot of effects long term on the health of your body, and so if you can't just not stress, which is very hard, it's very helpful to drink something like tulsi, which is called an adaptogen, is that term, just for helping your body respond to stress in a way that is productive, not destructive. It's an amazing tea. I was going to talk a little bit about sun tea, so I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. The sun is not shining, which is a very important part of making a sun tea. So there's tulsi in here, but I don't know if this is going to be drinkable in the next hour and a half. Mint we have everywhere. Peppermint, spearmint, and chocolate mint, which it tastes like chocolate. I sniffed it in my garden the other day and was like, oh, it smells like mint chocolate chip ice cream, and then I realized I was stepping on the chocolate mint. Mint is a really, really soothing plant for your stomach, especially if you feel kind of like hot or acidic or inflamed. Mint is a really good thing to drink daily. It is a little bit energizing, so it's maybe not something to drink right before bed if you're super sensitive to plants. But it's a really good cooling, soothing plant. Calendula, which is one of my favorite plants that I used to kind of not pay attention to because it's everywhere and it's so easy to grow, and I don't know why I was so dismissive of it, but calendula is an amazing edible flower in your salads. It's really commonly infused into things like oils and vinegars for culinary use, and so that is actually the oil that we're going to make. And I will point out calendula to you. We have it in the herb garden as well. You made calendula carrot cake cupcakes that were amazing. I still think about those. And calendula we often put into things like oils that we would apply topically for things like burns or cuts or abrasions. It's anti-inflammatory, it's very soothing, and it has actually cell regenerative properties. So it's really good for applying to like scars to help them kind of heal a little bit better and things like that. Yarrow is another really important wound healing herb that we have everywhere because it's one of my favorite flowers. That's something that usually you use externally in something like an oil or the powdered form or the fresh plant as a poultice. It's very famous for stopping blood very quickly. So I've heard insane stories of people like out in the woods cutting firewood, cutting into their leg with their chainsaw, being near yarrow, packing their cut with yarrow and stopping the blood so that they can then go seek further medical attention. So it's a really good thing to have in any sort of first aid kit that you would take with you. It's something that's really great to grow so that you have it easily available to you.
Is it the flower or the leaves? Or
both.
Both.
For packing into the city doesn't have anything to do with any of this. I'm like, this is all me. The leaves are really good for stopping bleeding. To put into an oil or a vinegar, something to take internally, all parts, all aerial parts. Most everything here, other than I said the dandelion root, this is all leaf and flower. And I'll show you how to harvest well and when to harvest when we actually go over to work with the plants. It's also something that people take to reduce fever. It's cooling. Fevers also have a function, so you don't want to absolutely never not have a fever, but if you're having a high fever that you want to bring down, yarrow can be really helpful. Plantain is another of the famous wound healing skin repair plants. We have a beautiful one that has gone to seed behind the crazy pink Enothera. Plantain is a weed. It's from England. It grows everywhere where there's any dampness, and it's another great thing to have on hand for especially things like bee stings. It can be really anti-inflammatory and also very soothing. Like if you, I stepped on a wasp one time and I put plantain on it right away, and it hurt a lot, but the plantain really helped cool down the heat that was causing the pain. So that's another great weed. A lot of herbalists tend to get a lot of satisfaction from just walking around and being like, oh, look at the dandelion growing out of the crack in the sidewalk, and oh, look at the plantain everywhere that everyone else who sees it wants to pull up. Oregano, thyme, and marjoram are all related to one another. They're some of our most common culinary herbs, and they are all quite strong, as you can tell when you taste them. They have a lot of volatile oil, which is what you smell. And actually, if you touch the fresh plant, you can kind of they're a little oily to the touch, and so that is, they're producing that, and it is really antibacterial and antiviral. So any of those 3 plants, if you feel like you're about to get sick, it's great to make a fresh tea from those plants, or to put a lot of them into whatever food you're eating.
Can I add one thing on
Yeah.
this, Marjorie? I stumbled onto this somewhere, and I thought it was kind of interesting. So we all hear the phrase antioxidants, and so basically when atoms combine in us and around us, they form molecules, and when the molecule is formed, often there's one or more additional electrons that are not necessary for the molecule, and they're kind of wandering around lost at the speed near the speed of those are free radicals, are the extra electrons, and they can cause mischief and damage. They're not inherently bad or anything, but things that we call antioxidant are molecular substances that have the ability to absorb one or more additional electrons, which neutralizes them. So I had known that oregano was a powerful antioxidant, but apparently somebody took all the known antioxidants into a laboratory and measured them on their antioxidant qualities. And to my surprise, I think marjoram is like a little lesser cousin of oregano or something. But marjoram is the strongest antioxidant that any of us are likely to consume or anything.
Cool.
So
yeah.
I throw it in stuff.
That's cool.
Do you ever use just the, I know a lot of people who swear by putting like a little bit of oregano, it's very strong, but in some water, and just having oregano water.
Like the plant?
The plant, or even just sometimes the oil, which I don't know that it blends, but people swear by it, that it keeps the water clean and...
Yeah, I usually just make tea, but that's the same thing.
Okay.
I kind of, I'm personally not super keen on ingesting essential oils.
I know, neither was I, so I thought it was odd that they said that. So
Especially
you're just like
oregano. It's just so strong. So does everyone know what an essential oil is? And there are these companies now like...
Young Living.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, what was that? doTERRA. Yeah. So they're selling a lot of essential oils, and I mean, essential oils are amazing. They're super effective for aromatherapy and for topical application. But ingesting a lot of them is really intense because you're ingesting the distillation of like hundreds of plants into an oil into your body, which can actually be really taxing to your liver and your kidney. So just proceed with caution. Consult professional medical opinion, but I'm a little hesitant, especially with something like oil of oregano or lavender oil, to take internally.
Well, that's what I thought. I know that they're not actually oils, they're actually solvents.
Right.
So you would suggest making a little tea, maybe just blending.
Yeah, and that's why I'm all about the oils and vinegars, because it's just a way more mellow way to use those plants, and I think it's a way that your body is just better adapted to use them. Oil and vinegar are both amazing mediums. So yeah, I will talk more. I'm just going to breeze through all these plants. So I can hurry up if this is too much information, or if you just want to visit it on your own. But
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So if you were going to take oregano, you would mix it with a little, and put fresh oregano in a glass, a little bit of vinegar and water, then add your water, and you would just drink that, or would you let it sit to absorb the...
Well, there's a few things. I would probably just eat it fresh on my food, or make a tea, which I can talk more about how to make tea. or infuse into an oil or vinegar that you would let sit for a little while. So
Okay.
I'll talk about a little
Okay.
more in detail about
Okay.
all of those methods in a moment. Should I hurry up with the plants, or is this
No,
interesting?
no, go ahead.
Okay. It's easy for me to get really. So dill, and I don't know why thyme is at the end. I don't know why it's digestive / thyme. That was just a typo. Dill and going to the back, cilantro, fennel, and parsley. I think of those all in kind of the same class in terms of being super common, super easy to grow. Culinary herbs, they're also very cooling and good for your digestion. So again, really great to incorporate into your diet, and because they're really common culinary herbs, we love the taste already. They can be an awesome candidate for infusing into an oil or a vinegar that you would then use culinarily. So it's a really good fit. And those plants also, especially cilantro and parsley, are actually surprisingly, they're just a wealth of vitamins and minerals, especially trace minerals that our body needs, like calcium and magnesium and iron that we can often be missing from our diet. And the other food plant for which that's true is stinging nettle, which is like my favorite of all time. Tea, soup, steamed as a green. We have one little nettle plant that I did not plant, that's a volunteer growing out of the rocks just in front of that huge, crazy goldenrod. Nettle is native to California. There are actually 2 kinds. You can look for it along any sort of undisturbed-ish riparian zone in the spring. They're an important food plant for insects as well, so often like a month or 2 into spring the nettle will be riddled with holes, so if it's something you're interested in harvesting, get there before the bugs do. But it's it's one of the best sources of iron from the plant world for our bodies, so especially, it's a stray cat chasing a ground squirrel.
All right. Yeah. Go for it.
Big kitty.
Stray cat chasing around.
Don't come in any
Is that the white one with the black spot?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was walking down the ramp.
And sometimes it's over, like, walking down that sidewalk, so.
That could be good.
Yeah.
That could be bad.
So nettle is just an incredible, it stings, so you have to be very careful when you're picking it. You can actually pick it without getting stung, but you just have to be super gentle, or you can wear gloves and use scissors or clippers. But it's an amazing, abundant food source, and like I said, that's the tea. Nettle Tulsi tea is what I drink every day because it's delicious, but also because I don't eat meat, so I need a lot of like extra iron. And it just feels so good for your body to drink that. Lavender. Our lavender is looking a little sad because I've moved it like 5 times. So unfortunately it's not blooming right now. But it's an amazing bitter digestive, which I'm sure you can taste if you taste the leaves. And it's also, again, a nervine, which is that word that I used before that means it's soothing to your nervous system and your brain, so it's calming. A lot of people use like the lavender essential oil as aromatherapy. It's definitely...
And it has a lot of phytoestrogens. A lot of the plants have
a lot of these
estrogen
plants do.
substances. And lavender is pretty high to the point that if estrogen levels are an issue, and there's a lot of lavender around you that, you know...
Yeah, sage and red clover are the others on this list that are high in phytoestrogens. Rosemary, which very oddly, we actually don't have a rosemary plant at the garden. I realized when I was making this list, but it's everywhere. It's like the #1 random landscaping plant of Southern California, I feel. It's just everywhere, which is great because it's an amazing brain tonic. It actually increases your cell's abilities to uptake oxygen, so people use it at, so a lot of these plants you can use tonically, which means there's all of these plants you can use tonically, which means you can eat them every day for the rest of your life, and they'll just help build your body's systems.
It's not possible to overdo it.
No. I mean, aside from the essential oil ingestion that I was talking about, no. Yeah, all of these plants, which is why it's so good to involve these in your diet, because there aren't side effects.
That's interesting.
Although everyone is different. So you just have to listen to your body. But these are all super safe. They're all safe for kids. They can eat them all. A lot of them would be really good for kids, especially lemon balm, which I was about to talk about. Rosemary is also famous for easing headaches, especially migraines, depending on the cause of your migraine or what triggers it. But like a good strong rosemary tea is good for your brain and your memory, but it also can kind of soothe your pain. Again, anti-inflammatory. Sage is something that is, I'm going to talk a little more about making an herbal salt, but this is a really amazing plant to use as an herbal salt. Also really good digestive and liver clearing. So we put our livers through a lot with our modern lifestyle, and so it's very good to take plants that can kind of support healthy functioning of your liver and help clean and clear your blood, which also a lot of these plants do, especially like parsley and cilantro and nettles and red clover. Did I say stinging nettle? I think I did. So lemon balm, which we have a lot of scattered all over the garden, is another really premier nervine. So again, the soothing, calming, quieting your brain. This is a delicious tea. It tastes like sweet lemon. We can try some in the garden. And it's also really safe for kids. So I have a 5-year-old niece who's like total wild child, and she responds really well to lemon balm. And to make it so there's also something that you can do that I'm happy to talk about maybe at a future time, since it does involve alcohol, but you can make tinctures of plants, which means that you can infuse plants into alcohol, which is a really powerful extractor and dehydrator. Like, think of what it does to our bodies if we drink it. So it can also do that to a plant. That you can make non-alcoholic versions like oils and vinegars and honeys, or something called glycerate, which is a corn byproduct. It's sweet, and so it also extracts plants well, and kids really like it because it just tastes like candy. So lemon balm is an amazing herb to drink as tea or to give to a wild child as tea. Super safe. Stinging nettle, which I had kind of already talked about, which is the one growing out of the rocks, is super nutritious. Red clover is another one of those plants that just takes in a lot of vitamins and minerals and makes them accessible to our bodies. It's also a really sweet and delicious tea, the leaf and flower. A blood purifier, which means it's also helping your liver and your kidneys. And it's an amazing syrup, so I'm going to talk more about syrups, making syrups as well in a moment. But since it's already so naturally sweet, it's really delicious as a syrup. And then chamomile, which is bitter, again helping you with your digestion, which it's actually it smells so honey and fragrant, but if you eat the leaves and flowers, I'm always surprised at how bitter they are. And that is also another plant that has a lot of the trace minerals that we aren't necessarily getting in our modern diet, and so again it's very good to drink teas of these. And I think of almost all of these plants, it seems like chamomile is the most widely accepted